Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to B&H's Food Photography Week. It is Wednesday, July 1st. We are halfway through this week's Food Photography Week, and we have got an amazing lineup for you today. Today, we've got Yessica Duque, sponsored by Tether Tools on her talk, So Simple Yet Appealing. And then also Steve Giralt from the Garage TV, giving the perfect pour. So let's get right to it. And here I am in my name. I'll be your host today, Gabriel Biederman. I have been a longtime B&Her and a sometimes host here on our live events. So very, very excited to be here today. And a couple logistics that I want to go over for Food Photography Week. The most important one, folks, be posting your food images. Remember, it is hashtag BH Food Photo Week. And you want to, we are doing a contest here. We've got sweepstakes. So share your favorite food photos on Twitter or Instagram, tagging B&H and using, again, hashtag BH Food Photo Week for a chance to win a Fujifilm XS10 and 18 to 55 lens Transcend memory card. In addition, we'll be choosing a handful of these images to include in our food photography, our food photo critique happening tomorrow at 2 p.m. East Coast Standard Time here on YouTube. You can find full sweepstakes instructions via B&H Social, and I'm sure they're dropping those links right now. All right, so it's my pleasure again. We're going to kick things off with Yessica. Yessica, come on down. All right, welcome to Food Photography Week. This is our first international member, all the way from the Netherlands.
Wow. So, happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
What time is it there?
Well, 7.
7, okay.
Evening.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you again. I hope, I hope you haven't eaten yet, because there's some tasty images that you're going to be showing us. So, so stay tuned, folks. A little bio about Yessica. She is a Dutch professional food photographer based in the Netherlands. And previously, Yessica had been working in the hospitality industry since 2016 as a food photographer and food stylist. As a premier food photographer, her work involves imagery for outdoor campaigns, social media, and PR for restaurants and chefs all over Europe. This is complemented by many years of experience as a graphic designer. Her expertise in food photography and food styling is backed by Le Cordon Bleu, Paris, Leith School of Food and Wine in London, and food styling for media, the International Culinary Center, ICC, in New York. You can check out her work on Instagram. She is Yessica_Duque, photography and social. If you could please drop that link in there. And her website, yessicaduque.com, is an amazing resource of inspiration and mouthwatering images. So, Yessica, take it away.
Thanks for the intro.
That's it.
She blew me away. Okay, today I'm going to present to you So Simple Yet Appealing.
Before you get started, Yessica, just let everyone know that go ahead. We are streaming this on YouTube, so please drop your questions. Any questions you have to Yessica, and we will integrate them. Well, we have time afterwards, but also if the question is relevant to what she's talking about now, we'll post it up to her and see if she can answer it. All right?
All right. Perfect. Well, I already had the introduction, so I'm going to move forward. And today I'm going to present you 3 simple tips to improve your food narrative. So this is what I do, basically. It's not like a rule, but it's just what I do. Okay, today I resume the whole presentation in 3 points. Like the first one is be picky. Pick a strong subject. Compose with focus. Sometimes less is more. And be evocative, spice things up. What I mean about big, strong subject, shoot what you like. That is my first advice. This photo over here, I posted the first day of summer here in the Netherlands. I remember that day was.
Yes. I think we're not seeing your screen.
Yes.
So it's your turn to share your screen.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
All righty, let's go back. Yes, I'm so sorry.
No worries. No worries.
Share. Yeah, they're
There
all
we
friends
go.
here.
All right.
Yes, here. 3 simple tips to improve your food narrative, and I resume them in 3 parts. Be picky, pick a strong subject, compose with focus, sometimes less is more, and be evocative, let's spice things up. Okay, what I mean by picking a strong subject, shoot what you like. In this case, like I was mentioning, I shoot this photo the first day of summer. It was super hot here in the Netherlands. And I was looking for that inspiration. So I went to the supermarket, and then we have like local greenhouses over here, and we have a lot of fresh produce. And then I saw these limes, and I had some fake eyes, and I just sprayed them with water. And I just wanted to recreate that moment, that feeling that it was so hot that I was like craving for something refreshing. And these limes are the proof of it. And I got a good reactions about this picture. It was well received, and it was something really, really simple, to be honest. And it was really appealing to everyone. 2 different stories with the same subject. I like to play around with the same thing and move things around and create a different atmosphere or create a different story. So this is the good thing about photography. You can play. And this is what I like to do, experiment. So, okay, I have these limes and I want to go for something more refreshing. Let's go for a splash. Let's use the same produce, let's squeeze the subject. About different stories, I have here also, because it's cherry season, I wanted to play with cherries one of these days. And then I want to play with different angles and different compositions from simple, from something closer, and create a recipe. Here in the Netherlands, we don't have cherry Garcia, and I love cherry Garcia. So I tried every summer to make my own cherry Garcia. And this is what I did. Again, I play basically, yeah, the cocktail is the main focus here, but what you really get my attention is the cucumber garnish. After this photo shoot, I had so many cucumbers left that I said, okay, I don't want to waste them. So what should I do? Let's pickle them. And this is what I did. And I recreate this beautiful, simple salad for summer. So 2 different scenarios with the same subject, basically. Something busy, something simple. With every photo shoot comes the planning, your camera gear, the angle, backdrops, props, whatever, to compose everything on set. I'm a big fan, to be honest, to shoot in tether because it makes things easier. I have a list of my basic equipment. So basically it is tethering equipment, my screen, my camera, some diffusers, backdrops, not much, to be honest, because I believe that if you want to produce a beautiful picture, sometimes you don't need like this big production. You can make amazing things with so little. I love experiments, and this is one of the things that I recommend to all my colleagues and the people who ask me. Sometimes I just grab one thing and I try to recreate that thing that is in my mind. And this is what I did with these macaroons exactly. And I had some tulips, leaves or petals, and I just wanted to toss them and see how everything is like falling. If you have the chance, practicing and experimenting is a good thing. And maybe the results are really cool and you can add more stuff to your portfolio. Okay, on Monday we had another presentation, and I don't remember her name, sorry, but she already spoke about all the rules of composition and techniques and this and that. So just keep this in mind. I have them basically in my head because I'm a graphic designer. I know more or less it's more intuitive, and when I compose, it's easier for me to place objects because it is already I'm already wired like this. So one of the things about following the rules is like don't making those too intentional. Like, okay, if you are using the golden ratio or the rule of thirds, don't put things like, okay, in place. Try to be playful and make it look not too perfect. I like going with the flow. And this is one of the things that I recommend. And the most important thing is to play around. I'm sorry. And have fun. If you compose with focus, what I mean by this is that every story that succeeds don't necessarily contain distracting elements. You can keep it simple and still interesting. So this is like really simple. We are focused here on the pouring and beer and the foam and some little bubbles here. It can be simple and yet interesting. So this is part of a big story I made a few weeks ago, and everything started with orange slices. And then came a recipe, a Portuguese recipe that contains these orange slices. I told you about the cucumber story and this mini bok choy or pak choy. What I like about this picture, I remember this was one of my first dark and moody pictures. What I love about this is like all the black that is included there, and just the produce with the light coming from the top, from behind. And this was only daylight, and I had some black boards to draw the light in the direction I want. Little details, like it doesn't need to be perfect, but here what it gets your attention is basically the color and the drop here. You don't need to keep everything completely sharp or focused. I mean, you need to have some intentional movement. Yeah. Playing with shadows. This was made entirely with daylight, and I just placed some gobos to recreate these beautiful shadows, and it was like the perfect moment. So this is the good thing about studying the light, the daylight. So you know more or less what can you expect from the lights. Also, this one was taken in the afternoon, like 2 summers ago, and it was around 5 in the afternoon. So that was like basically my golden hour to capture this. This one here, simplistic, because sushi is like this, Japanese food is like this, is elegant, is simple, and it's at the same time luxurious. Also this one, black garlic. When I see the light, I immediately think about what I have in my kitchen, and I grab it and I come to my studio, and with a few things. I just had a backdrop here. This is like an old baking sheet, and it was like oxidated, and with the colors of the garlic, it was like the perfect combination plus the light. One of the things is like, don't be afraid to turn up the volume. I can be really quiet, but I can also be really loud, and I really love when I'm loud. So I love playing with colors, with textures, and this is one of the most interesting things about food photography, playing with colors and textures, and give the audience that desires like refreshing. It's spray some water if you have some fresh produce, and you will get a good reaction. Also here, although I have so many elements, there is some kind of composition, and the main focus is the butter chicken and the rice. Some flowers, a rustic backdrop. Here, this is one of my favorites. These were some fruits that I took out of the freezer. And with the condensation, you get this beautiful effect. And these are overripe pineapples. So don't be afraid to play with stuff and to see the magic in it. Macarons and plastic flowers. This is the holy celebration for Indians. And it's basically joy, color, dust, textures, is happiness. Here, this is a traditional ham bread from Venezuela. We eat it only for Christmas. And I just wanted to do something different from the traditional we normally see. And I just added this frame and I tried to frame it. Yeah, that's how it is. So some souffle, let's add some action. This pouring of the gulab jamun, the Indian dessert this was for Diwali, yeah, for November. So you have here, it doesn't need to be like explicit, yeah, it's Diwali, but you see the diyas here, these candles they use for this celebration. So you see them in the background, but the main focus is here, the food, the pouring, the richness, the color, the textures. Be evocative, add some drama, and the emotional response is the most important part of a good story. Adding some hands in the frame, maybe some pouring, some splashes, a little chaos. You know, it will make things like memorable. And people say everything is already photographed, but I don't believe that. You can always strive for originality and add your personal touch to your photography. And there's nothing good or bad. The art is subjective. And I dare to try things like framing a burger, painting overripe pear with gold dust, and using some garlic here with a tiny mirror. And this one over here is another mirror. So play, experiment is a good thing. A few examples. One of the most cool things is like within food photography is playing with the senses. Make your audience like mouth watering and I want that burger or I want that chicken that you made. Is one of the most important things in food photography. So play with a little chaos. So this is fake ice, but in the end, I dropped some water to make it look like it's melting. Also here, the oysters are real, of course, not everything is fake in food photography. And here, the garnish and some little thyme in this jumbo drink is what you think, what you're craving and what you want to audience to crave, what you want to make your audience to crave. It's not about perfection. I started shooting these ice lollies and it was really hot, I remember. And I started from perfection until they started to melt. And I really, really love this picture when it's not perfect. These roasted strawberries and the richness of the liquid, and you can see the textures and the seeds and the thyme here. Also with the burger, I got this cheese melted and this little drop here of ketchup. Once I just want to buy that little slider or burger. Adding some action will make your image more alive and memorable, not so static. Try to play with sparkles or splashes or some, oh, I forgot the word. When you blow the candles, you know, the smoke. It will add some interesting touch to your photography. Play with levitation, things that are falling, or pouring some honey. Here, dusting some salt on these artichokes. Also the beer here, the foam, because it's so cold and so delicious. The human element can help you to tell a bird story. Here the strength and the she's kneading the dough. So this is a girl. And when I see this picture, I just want to make bread, honestly. It has a feeling. Also here, the hand of the guy like dropping the honey with the figs. She's making jam and she's like dropping some water. Ooh. And yeah, pouring some beer, adding some hands will make your composition and your photograph more interesting. Okay, how can you engage the audience? If you show variety, this is the one of the point I wanted to bring, and I'm going to show you why and how. Variety in your storytelling. I started with the process shot of how to make a pumpkin pie. So I wanted to show, okay, the season, here is the dough or the crust that is already baked, and I'm going to prepare the filling. And then when it's ready, the next morning, serving it with some coffee and whipped cream and playing with different angles. And I think it's what you need to see. It's not always like the same angle for one subject. Also here with the oysters, so you can play straight on or overhead shot, or you can play with your macro lens and go, come closer and see what is this. So this is like a feast. So this is basically my favorite season is autumn, and I like playing with the ingredients and the flavor. So this is the process of how do you poach these pears, and how can you serve them, and how can you see them from another angle? Because here are like basically complete, and here it is like open and in yogurt with some spice crumbles of cookies, Dutch cookies, by the way. The same feeling here, or the same situation. So you have the same subject and two different photos. Also with the blinis, you have a straight on photo, you have a overhead, and you come closer and see what is this. So the salmon gravlax with some, I think there are salmon eggs, I don't remember very well, but the combination tastes delicious, believe me. Here the same with I was really attracted by these noodles when I saw them at the Asian supermarket. They are made with taro, and that's why they are purple. Normally you see white noodles, and I love. I imagine the whole scenario when I saw these noodles at the supermarket with the shiitake mushrooms and the interesting shapes and the texture, and also how when you compose the ramen and some elements in the back. And I wanted to make it like a 45 and a straight, and an overhead, and also make a capture of the beauty of these noodles. Those were, that was the first time I see something like this. Same here, how it started, how is it going, and how it ended up. The emotion here, like, okay, this spoon with strawberries that are already fresh baked in the toast, on the toast, sorry, and also the liquid, pouring the liquid. Doesn't need to be perfect, but it's really inviting. It's like a home country or something like that. Same scenario with these noodles. These are Polish noodles. They're made of beetroot. And the color was exactly like this. I didn't make any alterations with Photoshop or Lightroom. And they normally combine them with basil. and I was really, really inspired by the basil as well. So I made a shot of this one and the one I grabbed to make it as a garnish, and the beauty of the beetroot. To end this, I just want you to remember that make it simple, make it memorable, and make it inviting to look at, and make it fun to read. Also applies with photography. This is from Leo Burnett, an American advertising executive, and I wanted to share this quote with you because I thought it was appropriate for this presentation. If you want to follow me on my socials, so this is my Facebook and my Instagram. I'm always replying all the messages. I love sharing my behind the scenes, and you can see how I do things. And I'm always sharing tips and tricks and where can you buy stuff and how did I make this or that. So you can check my reels. I really love sharing what I do. And for this presentation, you have a special treat from Tether Tools. It's a 20% discount via a promo code from the 19th until the 25th of this month. So Q&A time if you have some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can you put the discount code just on the screen one more time so we can get our social also to put in that promo code? Again, that promo code is BH Tether Food. And so that's those discounts are good at B&H Photo, and they're good until the 25th. And speaking of, we've got a couple questions about gear. What would you recommend people get from Tether Tools? What are your go-to Tether Tools gear? Let's start with that for making it happen.
Let's go for it. Well, I'm pretty basic, to be honest. I just have my cable, the orange cable that the one that is for my Canon R6. I have a mandatory gadget for the security of the data port of my camera, the tether block. So you can use thin, thicker, or medium cable. So you attach this under your camera, and still you can use any of your attachments, tripod attachments. So it's really compatible because you have like different holes and different sizes. It's really, really a good investment, because I had some accidents in the past with my 5D Mark III. When I wasn't shooting with tether, I was using just the regular cable, and the port of my camera is basically compromised.
Oh, compromised.
And everything falls, and you don't want that. But now with my Canon R6, I'm taking care of, and I'm using also the
jerk stopper.
Exactly. I always forget the name of that one, the jerk stopper, in case of your trip, and because things happen at your studio, and then you don't want to lose the connection of what you're doing at the moment.
Yes, that's and tell us how important, I guess, tethering is, right? Then looking at the back of your screen, right?
Exactly. I love shooting tether because it saves me a lot of time, especially when I go to, in general, but when I go to restaurants, I just want to get my perfect shot, and I don't want to come back only for my payment. I don't want to reshoot. I mean, I just want to be sure that everything is sharp and perfect and focused, and the client is happy, because you don't want to make them waste their time and waste their food. So it is more professional if you go with your laptop and your cable and your camera, and you make sure that you take 5 photos. You don't need more than that, instead of trusting off the LCD screen of your camera, and then you have 500 pictures and just one maybe works.
Right. So for checking that focus and really assessing the composition, just having that bigger screen is just so important. Exactly. Are you doing this? What software are you using to view?
Well, I use Lightroom.
Okay.
To be honest, I use Lightroom, and I moved to Lightroom last year, since they announced it's compatible for Canon. And before that, I was using the Canon utility. because you don't want to overspend money. But you know, it was like a hassle that you have to transfer the pictures to the Lightroom to make the edition. So now you have everything in one place.
Awesome. We're having a question from Dakish is asking, what kind of lenses do you mostly use and why?
Ooh, wow. I'm a
There's going to be a lot of gear questions. I have a feeling.
Yeah. I love Sigma and I love prime lenses. I mean,
Okay.
I'm a big fan of prime lenses. I own the Sigma Art, the 35, 50, 85, 105, and my favorite or my best friends are the 50, 1.4 Art, and the 105 Macro. Not the Art because I don't have it yet. I'm a big fan.
So Desert Island, with all the food you could shoot, one lens you bring is the new 105 Art that you don't own, or
One more, sorry.
So if you're on a desert island,
okay,
right, with all the food that you can photograph, but only one lens.
Okay. The 105 Macro. Yeah, it's really versatile. I love it. I love it. The 105 Macro. You can do marvelous things with it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said I love your your storytelling in your photographs. I love that you showcase so many triptychs, right? And it also showcases how powerful each of those angles. You seem to always have that 45, the tabletop
90.
view, and then an intimate shot, like a macro shot, a close-up shot that kind of highlights an aspect for that. So it's that you keyed in storytelling so much. So knowing that, another question from Dakish is, how would you shoot the same dish? For example, a Greek salad, right? But for 5 different restaurants.
Wow.
This is a good one, right? That's a good question.
Well, it depends because each restaurant, we're talking about 5 different restaurants, right?
That's correct.
It's not the same. Oh yeah, correct. So the chef has their own personal touch. So let's start with that. And yeah, the thing is, like, I don't want to keep things so traditional because some restaurants or some chefs don't like that, so they want to go for variety. So with me, when I go to a restaurant, I try to bring some extra props just in case I don't like what the restaurant has, because I ask in advance, like, okay, could you please send me a picture of your props or your cutlery, this and that, and then I have an idea. Maybe I can bring some stuff and combine what they have with what I have, what I think that it would look best to elevate that dish. And also I bring with me backdrops just in case, because if I don't like the table, the surface, so it's better be safe than sorry.
So this is interesting. How much are you, when you work with a restaurant, they're obviously hiring you for your vision and your expertise. Yeah. However, the restaurant, as you're saying, also has a certain aesthetic. Yes. So in your experience when working with those restaurants, are you working closely with the chef or, the owner, and just kind of trying to find that mid ground, and what story you're trying to do, or how is that collaborative effort? Can you walk us through, I guess, a little bit of the collaborative effort that you experience on these shoots with restaurants?
Well, yeah, you're right. This is a strong communication with the chef. When I go to a restaurant, I just try to keep things like casual. And when the chef is making the dish, I don't interfere. So because it's his art, is his vision, I'm just going to try that this art is going to look good, on my stage. But I'm not going to change his vision. So this is my rule. I don't touch what the chef is doing unless if it looks bad. Okay, I'll communicate and then I'll tell him, can you please do it in another way? I have a experience from a restaurant in Brussels that they were changing their menu because it was a new concept, and they were making roaches with the lime zest. And I said, you don't want to see an insect on your food, like really don't do that. So they were making roaches. Like I know the effort, and they were trying to do something really cool. But I said, You know what? But they said, could you please? And then they said, could you please help us? And then I intervened, and then I went to the kitchen, and then I told him, okay, look, this pasta, you can roll it like this with a ladle, and then you can use some twisters and make some nice volcano, and maybe add some of the frutto di mare on top,
Nice.
volume. You know,
Nice.
that's the only this is what when I interview, when I see that the client is in trouble because they told me we are changing this menu and we have no idea.
Yeah. We have a request if you can go back a slide and share your social information again.
Yes, here.
Okay, there we go. For those of you on the Instagram, it's Yessica_Duque_photography. Check her out. And then her website is also phenomenal. So check that out as well. So Yessica, what percentage of your work is like at restaurants, at clients? Because I also know you're a very good chef as well, and creating your own masterpieces at home. What would you say, like, how much are you doing at home and how much are you doing out in the field?
Well, to be honest, I don't post all the work I do for my clients. I try to post what I do for myself, because
Gotcha.
my portfolio needs to reflect who I am. And to be honest, I'm a fighter of that. I don't want to have a singular or a particular style, because I like to play with angles, and I like to play with emotions, with the feelings, with the seasons, with the colors, with textures, with everything. And at one interview I had for an agency that they hired me to work as a freelancer, I asked them, do you mind that I have like different styles? And then they said, no, because this is what we want. We need to see that you are capable of switching like this for a magazine, or for a folder, or for a supermarket catalog. So we like to see that you are capable of going like dark and moody, and you can be colorful, and you can be minimal. So you don't have any problems with that.
Your variety, is just amazing, and I'm just blown away, with that, because you seem to be the master of all the different styles of food,
Yeah.
from beverages, and doing the pours and all that other stuff, to just you're such a variety in the foods that we saw here. So, and this leads into a question from Christina. What type of food has been the most difficult to photograph?
Cakes. I hate photographing cakes.
Cakes. Okay. All right. Keep the desserts away.
No,
Well, so why do you hate photographing cakes?
I don't know. I don't know, because I think it's because I had a season in my life before becoming a food photographer that I was obsessed with Carlos Bakery, with this
Okay.
TV show, and I wanted to make the cakes like him, and I tried and I did it. And I'm so fed up of cakes that when I see a cake, okay, I'm gonna do it. But I don't know. It's not that I hate photographing cakes, but it's like, it's not my favorite subject.
Do cupcakes fall under that as well?
No, cupcakes are fun.
Cupcakes are cuter, right? They're cuter.
Yeah, exactly. So you can play and make some nice, composition with cupcakes.
Okay. So,
Yes.
okay, so that's the most difficult or challenging. What's your favorite type of style that you?
Fresh produce. I love
Fresh.
fresh produce, and I like to toss them, like a maniac, and play with overripe stuff and see the magic in it, and going to the greenhouses here and discovering, amazing stuff that in my country I never saw, to be honest. Like, carrots of different colors, and red beets that are like not only red, that you can find them yellow, orange, and I'm really passionate about it.
So, as a food photographer, you're obviously going to all the farmers markets. You mentioned greenhouses. Where else are you kind of finding your food at that might help inspire others? Anywhere else, or is it?
I go to the greenhouses, and I go to these big supermarkets only for restaurants. I also
Okay.
have the pass, and then I check what they have.
So, do you have a fridge dedicated to your food photography, your studio?
No, yet, not yet.
Not yet, but you need it. You need it, right? You recommend?
Yes,
Do you
yes.
recommend it? It seems
Yes,
like.
yes, 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 yes. I showed you the other day my room for my props, and it's
Yeah.
really big. I have a freezer, but I don't have a fridge yet.
Okay.
So I'm working on it.
All right, folks. Let's help. Let's send the funds. Send the funds. She needs a fridge. Yessica needs a fridge.
I need the space. I need the
They
space.
need the space too, right? Exactly. Okay. Let's ask this question. What is your favorite food to cook, but you don't like to photograph it? It's not photographic.
My God, that is a difficult question. I like photograph everything but cakes.
Yes.
But I love when I cook pastry, like Italian pastry, or
Yep.
I made for Father's Day some sepola di San Giuseppe. That was my first time ever. I just wanted to make them specially for Father's Day for my husband, because I remember them from Naples in Italy. So I love the whole process, and I document the whole thing. It's on my reel, so you can see me doing the dough and doing the pastry cream and then everything. I love it.
Nice.
I think it's Italian pastry that I like to do the most.
Okay.
To photograph.
All right. Leah is asking, can you tell us any really good food styling courses that you know about?
Yes. Well, depends where you are, but I went to New York to the International Culinary Center because it's one of the best programs, and it's a quick one. So it's intensive. It's an intensive weekend, and you can learn from the best. And one of my mentor there was Louise Leonard. She's really famous. She worked for Martha Stewart and a bunch of people and TV shows and cooking shows, and she's incredibly amazing. So I learned my best tricks from her. And also there is a food styling book that I don't know if I can jump and pick it up quickly.
Yeah, sure. You jump.
Okay.
You don't even have to jump.
Okay, I have this book that can also be really handy.
Okay.
If you want to grab some tips and tricks, this is a really good one.
Who's that by? It just says food styling. That's a great photo. Is that your photo on the front?
Yes. No, I wish. No, but in New York, in that course, I learned how to assemble a sandwich like this. So that was like the last test.
Well, I tell you, I know how to eat a sandwich like that. I don't know how to assemble it, but I do know how to eat it.
Okay. And if you are in Europe, I would definitely recommend the Le Cordon Bleu in London. This is the one I did. It's a food styling and photography, and it's really amazing, that course, because you will learn how to use artificial light, flashes, and the final test, you will get a brief, like kind of agency brief. And okay, first test, you need to design a cover for a book. Here's a bunch of bread. The book is about bread. Second test is a foodie recipe for a breakfast. So you have all the elements, you have chef working with you, next to you, and they can assist you how to plate stuff, how to arrange things. It's amazing.
Awesome. We're getting a request to find out a little bit more about that book. Do you know the author or?
Oh, yeah. Well, it says Dolores Custer. Dolores Custer.
Dolores, okay.
Custer.
Okay. Dolores, okay. Boom. Thank you. All right, we got it. Okay.
It's like the Bible of food styling.
I like that.
It's heavy. Yeah.
And again, that New York, because we want to get that into the chat. What's the school again in New York?
The International Culinary Center.
National?
The ICC.
International.
The ICC. International Culinary Center.
Perfect.
It's in, I don't remember the place because I was like, Google, take me there.
So if you wanted to immerse yourself in a food capital, a food city, what 2 to 3 cities would you recommend?
Oh, well, Paris for pastry.
Yep.
Italy because of it's Italy.
It's Italy. It's Rome or Milan?
No. Naples.
Naples. Oh,
Naples.
Okay.
Naples is where the real food porn is.
All right. Okay.
I mean, in Milan, people don't eat; they need to stay fit.
Yeah.
The food is not that.
Well, you climb up Mount Vesuvius, and then you come back down and you do the cooking.
Yeah,
and eating
but
it,
Naples,
whatever.
definitely Naples, because the pastry is amazing. That you have all the sea products. I mean, alici. They have so much variety, and you are gonna go crazy if you go to
Okay.
Naples.
So
Yeah,
Naples,
and
Paris.
then the third one it could be somewhere or Asia.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. It's hard. Or Latin America, because we also have like super delicious cuisine. And I think it's going to be Mexico, because they have a delicious, delicious, delicious cuisine. And I'm willing to go there to taste the real flavors, to bring them home. Because this is what I do when I travel. I taste stuff, I keep them in my memory, and then I come home and I try to make them as similar as possible.
And isn't it just wonderful? I know when I travel, I love to visit the markets, right?
Yeah.
The food markets, to see what spices and foods and everything that they're cooking with. And that's what I like to come home with, as a souvenir,
Yes. My husband hated, but I love to go to city.
Exactly.
And when I went to the supermarket in New York, and when I saw the aisle of cereal, I was like, oh, you have so many variety of cereal. Isn't this amazing? We don't have that here.
I like also going into grocery stores in other countries that have a different language and trying to read them and try to read their names. And that usually just turns into a giggle fest.
Yeah. Yeah, like Oreo from Greece, like how it's written. I don't know if it's different.
We're getting some other chatter, about, and folks, feel free to drop in the city that you want to go to and immerse yourself. We've got Tokyo, we've got Mumbai in India.
Yes, also. Yes.
Right?
Ooh, I love Indian food.
And let's not forget New York. Hello, B&H.
Yeah, of course, you have everything there.
Well, B&H, we have all the gear, but then down the road is one of the best pizza places. Yeah. We have everything.
Yes, you have Little Italy. You have everything there. So definitely. It's really hard. You cannot limit me to 3 cities. Come on.
Well, we just need more vacation time. That's it.
That's cruel. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see what else. Okay. All right. Here's another one.
Yes.
What would be a dream, or who would be a dream client to work with?
Well, I already got it. So it is one of the biggest companies here in the Netherlands. It's a supermarket, and I'll be working for them as a freelance photographer, picking projects, and I wish to see my work in one of their magazines. So yes, I have it, but it's not everything. It's just Poland, but Heinz, probably Heinz.
Really?
Yeah, it is interesting with that red color and everything. Yeah. I can be explosive if I do something for Heinz.
Bring in the action.
Yes.
They got 57 flavors, so you get it's more than red.
Exactly.
You got to go to Pittsburgh. Heinz is Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, here in Holland we have, I think, that marketing offices or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah.
No, Pittsburgh's a good place. They got a foodie. There's foodies everywhere here.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then obviously the question everyone's being asked is, what advice would you give to go from doing this on Instagram to doing this and maybe making some money, for that? What helped? What are some things that helped get you there to that next level?
Okay. In 2016, I started working for a food delivery company, right?
Okay.
And then my boss just told me, Jessica, we are running out of food photographers. We had a national campaign running against Deliveroo and Uber Eats. And he said, can you please grab the camera and go and make some photos at the restaurants? Yes, cool, perfect, I'll do that. I succeeded, and that's why I fell in love with this beautiful field, and I found my niche. Then in 2018, I decided to go solo. And I know it was going to be hard, but I left some good impressions to all those restaurants I went to photograph.
Yeah.
And because the restaurant can see the way you work, and they immediately fall in love with you. And they will say, could you please make me a private session and, with all your ideas. So this is the most important thing. And in the beginning, I remember I was taking some little jobs for the competition. So I found this page like Coda Kit. I mean, the salary was miserable, and yeah, you can say, yeah, this is not good for the photography business, but you need to start. And at some point, I used that as my way to connect with restaurant owners. And okay, I was doing a job, a photo shoot for probably 100 euros, and they were only 5 pictures. You don't have any rights about those pictures, but you don't care about the rights of those pictures. They don't look good at all for your portfolio. So, but the most important thing is like the networking, that you can make, the connections you can make with those restaurants, and they can hire you later. And what happened later? Okay, they can recommend you, like word of mouth, to other friends, to other restaurants, and that's how it works. And keep your socials, like moving constantly, showing what you're doing, refreshing them. I recommend to participate in Food Photography Challenge because it will add more content to your portfolio. That's my advice. And also keep your website updated on Google with your CEO, blah, blah, blah.
Perfect.
And that's how it is.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great answer. We have a couple more gear questions that have come in. William is asking that what kind of lighting, because your work is so well lit and crafted. And obviously, you are using lighting, right? This isn't just window light and everything.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, I'm a big fan of combining daylight, flash, and continuous light. And I only work with one flash. So I like to work with my octobox or with my strip box in the way that I can modulate the light in the way I want it.
Okay.
You don't need like 2 or 3 flashes. Maybe some photographer, they do it and they do an excellent job. But for me, one is more than enough.
And how big? Are you using big soft boxes or are you using?
I'm just like relying on my strip box. This one that is here, I don't know, probably.
Big. That's pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty big. And also the octobox is 1 meter something.
Yep.
So
okay. So those are pretty big. So nice big
it's
soft
pretty big,
light.
yeah.
Yep.
I use the soft box. I prefer to use the soft box during the autumn and winter time because I can add the grid and make the light like softer, in the way I want it. And that's what I do with lights.
Yeah.
And
now you do a couple of things, especially with the beverages. You were freezing.
You need flash.
Yeah. Okay.
For action, you need flash, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
And you said you're a Canon user, correct?
Yes. R6 is my my new baby, and before I had my 5D that I love it so much.
So what do you like about the R6 and going mirrorless?
Well, first I thought it was a toy camera, but then because I needed to feel like like it's heavy and I can but no, this camera it's amazing. And I don't know, and also in the combination with my Sigma art lenses, I mean, I love it. I mean, it's mirrorless, it's the future, it's lighter. I see that my photography changed a lot. I don't know, I see more crispiness, color, light, sharpness. Call me crazy, but this is my perception.
Okay. And you use autofocus, right? That autofocus is super zippy now on that R6.
Yeah, but when I need to keep that specific, I just go for manual.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think unless anyone give people the last minute warning for questions, but I have a fun question to end with, unless we get anything more.
Wow.
What is your favorite food TV show right now?
Wow. I love the chef show. Really, honestly, I love the chef show. And of course, I love Chef's Table.
Yeah, Chef's Table.
Yeah, it is amazing. And yeah, but I love and also the Ugly Delicious. I like it. I like
Ugly Delicious. Yeah.
And Somebody Field. I love that guy. I love that guy. I love him. I mean, he is unstoppable. He cannot stop eating. I love him. He will be my best. He will be my best friend if we travel together. And take you to eat.
Exactly. Please. Yes, exactly. Please. All right. Yes. Excellent. Oh, all right. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. This has been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. And again, thanks for joining us all the way in the Netherlands. This has been a quite international and mouth-watering session here.
Wow, thanks.
We wish you all the best. And if folks
Thank
don't forget
you.
to follow her. And then one last time, Jessica, let's see that last slide for the Tether Tools deals.
Yes, sure.
And that's
Here.
a sure sign to, again, level up your photography, get it tethered, be shooting to your laptop or a monitor. Again, that code BH Tether Food at BH Photo, 20% off until I think it's this Sunday, the 25th. So definitely take advantage of that. And Jessica, thank you again so much.
Thank you
really
for
appreciate
having me.
it. Yes, this is great. I look forward to following you and following your adventures. And if you're ever in New York, let's go on a gastronomical walk.
Yes, this is what I did when I was in New York, by the way. I had a list of places that I wanted to visit. One of them was Joe's Pizza. Yeah. And I went to Milk and I went to different places and I was like walking and eating, walking and eating, walking and eating. So
yep, it's a great
the perfect trip.
Yep,
yes.
Totally.
So feel free to pop any questions on my Instagram. I try to reply them and to help you to improve your photography. And, you know, I'm really happy to help. Sharing is caring.
Yes. Thank you so much. Really appreciate
it.
All right.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.
All right. And then we'll take a quick break here, and I'm going to share with you the rest of the schedule that we've got. And again, remember, anything that we've had before, Monday and Tuesday, you can watch on the B&H YouTube channel. They're all saved. Just put in BH Food Photography Week, and all 4 of the other courses are all available. I've watched them all. It's been great. I've learned so much. I mean, who doesn't like shooting food, right? It's just such a universal thing for us to do and level it up, folks. So coming up next, we've got Steve Giralt and the Perfect Pour. And this is going to be it says live demo. It's actually going to be a recorded demo. So just FYI on that. Steve got a job here that he said he had to take. And so he recorded it, and it's an awesome video that you're going to learn everything you want about pouring. And I never knew pouring had so much science to it. So pretty amazing there. And then, so hold on to you. We're going to start that in about a minute. And then tomorrow, same food time, same B&H channel, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. East Coast Standard. We've got the Food Influencers panel with David Ma, Jessica Hirsch, and Remy Morimoto Park. And that's going to be a great panel. You won't want to check that. You will definitely want to check that out. And then following that, that is the sweet and savory food photography image review. And that's going to be with Michael Hollander, Yana Karen, and a bunch of other people perhaps might swing by. And if you want to get your images reviewed, post them up on Twitter and Instagram and hashtag BH Food Photo Week to be not only hopefully selected for that image review, but also for the wonderful winning prizes that we've got for that. All right. So let me share one more screen and do this to do the official segue. Okay. And this is going to be, again, the Perfect Pour with Steve Giralt. That is what we've got up for you next. And just a little bit about, so again, Steve couldn't join us today. He got a gig, so this is a recording. But let me share with you a little bit about Steve and the Garage TV, which I'm sure if you're not familiar with, you definitely want to make familiar with. So Steve, actually, I'm here in Brooklyn. I know it looks like I'm right behind or right in front of B&H Photo, but I'm actually in Brooklyn, and I am less than a mile from the garage. And I know my coworker Christian has popped over to the garage and checked it out. It is an amazing studio with a lot of robotics, a lot of amazing food photography going on. And the Steve and the garage, they hold workshops, they do rentals, and it's just a wonderful collaborative space there. So just a little bit, the garage is a technically driven visual innovation production company with a passion for making amazing visual brand stories. Fueled by their need to look at things differently and they're out of the box thinking, the garage is constantly pushing the art of visual storytelling forward. At the garage, they love technology, but the stories is, of course, always king. The story is what drives the technologies that they create, which can supercharge the stories that they tell. When art and engineering come together, amazing things happen. The garage process is unique, yet flexible. They can lead a job from creative inception all the way through the finish line, or only collaboration on certain part of it. No matter what their role is, they bring excitement in making cool visuals in our years of experience to every project. We love VFX supervisors and incredibly complicated jobs that make your brain hurt. In this hybrid world where practical effects are constantly being merged with CGI, it's important that we all speak the same language. The garage is the place where we experiment, play, learn, and innovate. We make cool stuff in the garage. Now, Steve Giralt is the visual engineer, equal parts, right and left brain. He is the director, DP, with a side of engineer. Tabletop storytelling is his absolute passion. He started his career as a still photographer, shooting stills for big brands and magazines. Today, Steve is constantly building, making, creating, and generally doing something creative, as he doesn't really sit still well. So you can find the garage on Instagram. It's the.garage.TV. And Steve's personal Instagram is Steve Giralt, Giralt. You can also find them at the-garage.tv, and then also thegaragerentals.com. So how we're going to handle Q&As, folks, is that just reach out to the garage. And Steve had said that reaching out to either himself personally, Steve Giralt, or the Garage TV, DM them on Instagram. So if you have any questions, you can obviously put them in here. Just note that Steve's not here to answer them, but you feel free to DM them, and also feel free to chatter. Let's talk about it. There's going to be some cool stuff that that he's going to be showing. So we want to definitely take a look at that. All right. So with that being said, let me share my screen and we'll get started with Steve Giralt and the garage in the perfect pour.
Hey everybody, this is Steve Giralt.
Oh, hold on. Before we start that, I'm going to share my screen with audio and optimizing the video. How about that?
Hey everybody, this is Steve Giralt. I'm here at the Garage Studios in Brooklyn, and today we're going to talk about the perfect pour. So what is the perfect pour when it comes to food photography? Well, it could be exactly what it sounds like. We could be pouring things like coffee, we could pour milk, we could pour chocolate, we could pour wine, we could pour beer, that's my favorite. But we could pour all sorts of kinds of things. And I want to kind of go through a little bit of breaking down the nuances that makes a really good pour versus a pour that's okay. You know, I see on Instagram people trying to, make amazing work, and sometimes it looks amazing, but sometimes I'm like, if they poured just a little better, this would be really awesome. So we're going to cover exactly that. We're going to cover both the vessels you pour from, the vessels you pour into, and everything in between. So this is going to cover basically pouring anything when it comes to food, and then also beverage. Here at the Garage, I'm a director at DP. I do a lot of food and beverage photography and TV commercials for big brands all over the country and in the world. And it's all about that perfect pour for our clients. So to get started, I think it's really important to discuss the container that you're pouring from. So let's say a lot of people are like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pour some wine. Well, they pour it from the wine bottle and that's all they do. And that's okay, especially if you're gonna see obviously what the container where it's coming from, that makes a lot of sense. But if you don't see where the container is coming from is, then you might wanna actually pour from a different container. Because when we pour wine, as we all know, there is a glug, 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 which is called an air exchange that happens in the bottle, right? For the liquid to come out, air needs to go into the bottle. So that happens with bottles, that happens with cans, you name it. That's always going to be something you have to deal with unless you actually make a hole so that air could actually go behind the liquid and therefore give you a really smooth pour. But more often than not, it's a lot easier just to pour from a different type of container. I love these measuring squishy containers that you could get at the, online or at the Bed Bath & Beyond or any of those kinds of places, because it lets you measure your pour, because sometimes you want to make sure that you're not, going to overfill, the beer glass that you're using or any other kind of container that you're going to use. So it's good to say, hey, if I pour exactly 2 cups, this will stop right here and it'll be a perfect pour of beer. So I love these. I think these are really great. And on top of that, we're going to get into like the shape of things in a little bit. But basically, you could actually squeeze and change the shape of this. So if you wanted a skinnier pour, you could squeeze it really tight like that. And if you wanted a wider pour, you could actually make it be really flat and wide like that. So these are really cool. They also make them in different sizes. You got little ones. This just will only do a 1/2 cup. This will do a 2 cup. And I think this is probably somewhere in between. This is a 1 cup. So we have them in all shapes of sizes. Sometimes though, if you don't need to be changing that shape of the pour, then using just a regular everyday glass one is really good as well. Because you have the ability to use the spout itself, or you could actually pour from the back of the container itself if you wanted a wider pour. So these are also incredibly useful. With that being said, it's also really good to prepare your pour ahead of time if you can, right? So let's say, I really like pouring from, this takeout container, right? Because I like the shape of it. I think it's like a nice round shape. Well, then it's good to get here and be like, hey, I'm going to measure out my 4 ounces, let's say, and then have it ready to go. And you could have a bunch of these ready to go so that, let's say you're going to do a bunch of pours in a row, you're not having to measure every time and it's all ready to go. Because a lot of times in our world, time is money, money is time. So the quicker you can reset, the better. Getting into that idea, now let's talk a little bit about the containers you pour into or the things you pour onto. So today we're going to go through wine pouring milk into coffee, and we're also going to cover pouring beer into a glass and pouring chocolate on top of a candy bar. So getting a little bit into the food realm beyond the beverage realm, but all these kinds of rules and things that I'm covering today really apply to all things food. Whether it's beverage, anytime it's a liquid that you're pouring, chocolate sauce, caramel sauce, salad dressing, you name it, you always want to kind of keep in mind how you're going to pour it. So let's get into it. What do you say? Let's do it. Let's get into it. All right. So the next part I want to talk about is when you're dealing, we're going to start first with the coffee and milk pour, right? So I'm going to bring those up here. So I got coffee prepared for myself here, and then I have whole milk, and then I also have half and half. So when you really want that bloom of liquid inside your coffee to really show up, you want the thickest cream you could find. So half and half is pretty much as thick as it gets, unless you actually go to heavy cream. Sometimes we use heavy cream, but sometimes it almost feels too paint-like and too thick. So I feel for me, either half and half or half and half mixed with a little heavy cream is the way to go. I'm going to show you what whole milk looks like versus the half and half, just so you kind of get a little idea about that. A lot of times also people will pour into real glasses. Well, let's see what I have here. I have some pint glasses here. So real glasses, the glass isn't perfect. It definitely has some like optical things happening in it where it's going to make your stuff not look as good. So oftentimes we'll actually make little plexiglass tanks like this one right here. So this is probably about 1 inch by like 6 inches tall. So it also keeps everything in a very vertical structure, so that if you had, let's say, instead a really big round glass, the liquid could actually go really far back and maybe you won't get that bloom of coffee in the front. Where with this, by keeping it nice and flat, the milk, once it hits the bottom, is going to kind of come right up that side, which is something you really want. We have these in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Before we learned how to make our own little plexi tanks, which isn't so hard, I found this. This is actually a glass vase from a flower shop that I found. It's a very similar size to one of the plexi tanks we have here, but it is not as good optically. It's pretty good. We shot some Coca-Cola commercials and some Pepsi commercials in this because it still looks pretty good. It was a nice distance to put just enough ice, so it felt like you're looking at a Coke. But actually, the light comes through it a lot easier than a real Coca-Cola when you're in a round glass because it's a lot thinner. So look around. Always be looking around places for flat containers that might look really good. For the most extreme situations, this is our tiniest little plexi tank we've ever built. So this is only about a 1/4 inch deep. It's probably gonna be hard to see that, but it's a 1/4 inch deep, which is kind of crazy. But this will actually lets us isolate the bubbles in soda when we do it. So we pour it in here, and it's so thin that instead of having like millions of layers of bubbles, you actually just get a couple layers of bubbles for like extreme bubble macro work. So this is really fun too. On our YouTube channel, The Garage Learning, you'll see that there's actually some demos on how to make your own plexi tanks. So for today, I'm going to use first this little tank here. I am going to use this to pour in. Oh wait, oh. See, I almost made a mistake there. So we make drain holes in our tanks so that we could actually drain the liquid out after a shoot easily and reset. So let's see, this one doesn't have a drain hole, so I'll use this one instead. But it's as easy as like putting some tape over the hole, and then when you want to drain it, you let the drain out, and then you could close the hole and you could refill it once again to try to make it as fast as possible when we're trying to shoot. So what I like for my half and half is I really like using this little flexi cup thing here. So I'm going to measure out about a half a cup. And same thing, as you play with this, you'll figure out what the right quantity is based on the size of your container and how light you want it to look once it's done. And one thing also keep in mind, right? There's one thing is the shape of the container that you're pouring from, and also the shape of the container you're pouring into. But your aim and exactly where you hit and how fast you pour is really important, and it's a really hard thing to teach. I would just recommend picking up some materials and just starting to play with your camera. You could do this with still photography, where you'll shoot still photos with strobes, or you could do this with slow motion videos, awesome, either on your phone, or if you have a camera that could do 120 or 240 frames slow motion. This shot will look really cool. We're not going to get into that technical stuff today. We're really just talking about the art of the pour, but you can follow our channels to see and learn all those kinds of things at another time. So what I like to do for the perfect bloom is I like to pour from the back of the container, and I kind of aim like straight down the middle of the container, because you got to think about what the fluid's going to do, right? So let's say this is the cross section of this container. So if I pour in this way, and then it's going to kind of want to hit the bottom and kind of scoop up that way, because if you hit the front of the container, it's going to get really white really quickly there. So let's see how I do. I'm going to give it a try and see if I can get it. I think the #1 problem I see people do with pours, they're too dainty with it. They just they drip a little bit at a time because that's how you normally pour it. But when you're doing a picture or a video and you want it to be like awesome, generally speaking, you got to pour faster than you naturally would. So I'm going to pour with gumption, how we normally do here, and we'll see what that looks like. Obviously, we don't have slow-mo today, but you could kind of imagine and look really closely at what happens. So here we go, 3, 2, 1. Woo! And there you go. So that was just, I only poured about half of this, so that was about a 1/4 cup of the milk. And as you see, that got real cloudy, real pretty, real fast. But we could use this container Coffee. There it goes. And then, the other thing that you could play with is scale, right? If I have a bigger container, the milk stream will be have a lot more room for little details in it versus if I'm really, really close to it. So sometimes we like to use a larger than life container because that kind of creates a really cool effect. So I'm going to pour, actually not this, I'm going to pour in here the whole milk so we can see the difference of how the color reacts compared to the half and half. So here we go. Sometimes it's really hard to kind of reach exactly where you're trying to go, but we're going to try this like this and see how it goes. All right, so ready? 3, 2, 1, pour. Yeah, so it's a little different color than the color you see that we got here from the half and half, but it's something to play with, something to experiment with. You definitely don't want to use skim milk when you're trying to do this, so definitely keep that in mind. The thicker is usually the better for the most impact possible. So let's see. Let's go next onto here. My microphone is acting funny. Okay, let's see. Hopefully that's good. All right, so milk into coffee, that's the way you do it. Also, you don't want to use hot coffee unless you want to really see that steam happening, because it just starts creating a little condensation in your glass and everything you're trying to look at. But if you're trying to do that steam effect, actually one of the promo images for this event was actually a steam pour with coffee and milk in a clear mug, and that they really wanted it steamy, so that one we used really hot coffee. But unless you're seeing the top of it, use room temperature coffee. It's a lot easier to deal with. So the next one is, it's time for some wine. So we're going to talk about pouring red wine. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways to pour red wine. And just, a quick side note, for those of you that watch our work and follow me on Instagram, you'll see that we use robots to do a lot of our pouring. And people are like, why? I could just do that by hand. Why would you use a robot? So just kind of to go on to a little side note about this, the main reason we use a robot is to make sure it's going to be poured exactly the same way every time. So it's going to hit the same spot. It's going to pour the same amount every single time. So if I want to try to create a special effect, I know that it's going to be the same effect every time. And then the next one is to make sure that the pour shape and speed is always the same too. Because if you pour faster or slower, it's going to have a different effect. That being said, let's say, I don't care if the pour shape and speed are the same and whatever. The next reason why we use the robots to do the pour is because if I wanted to do a camera move and I'm shooting in super slow motion, if the timing isn't quite right, then it's not going to look good. So we know that the robot's going to pour at the same time every single time we do it, and that the camera can now move around that pour and chase it out of the bottle down into the glass and see a beautiful swoop or whatever it is that we're going to kind of choose to affect. So with that being said, you see here I have 2 different wine glasses, right? This is like a bigger red wine glass. This is more of a white wine glass. And the shape of your glass is going to have a big effect on the shape that your liquid makes when it hits the glass. For wine, I specifically like using something like this for pouring, because it mimics the shape of the wine glass. As you see here, it's kind of the same size as the wine bottle here. But it gives me the control to pour a lot faster and pour a lot more. Because in the bottle, just to show you, I'm going to pour this red wine in here, and you can see the glug that I was talking about, the air exchange. So here we go. You see, it's kind of like a in, out kind of effect that happens, which, could be okay, depends on what you're going for. So the next thing, I think, similar speed talk to what we were talking about with the milk, is the speed of your pour. I think I see way too often, I see people pouring wine just like this. They're like, it's this little streamy thing, and it's really thin. And that's not so exciting. That's okay if you're going to drink it and you don't want to spill it, because this is like liquid gold. But if you want to make an impactful shot, you want to pour it with a lot more gumption, something like this. Ready? 3, 2, 1. You know, something where it really, it comes and hits. So I'm gonna do that one more time. And then you can really get into deciding where you want that wine to go. So maybe having the glass tilted, and you could have it kind of come up the side more, or you could, you know, once again, the sky's the limit here as far as where that wine will go. And you could play with different shaped glasses, different shaped pouring containers. Let's say instead I poured straight out of this thing. So this is gonna have a lot wider rim than this one did. And woo, yeah, it really flows really fast. Another quick tip, those that use paper towels, it's also good to have a lot of real towels around when you don't need paper towels. We cut them up into these into strips, like so that you're not grabbing the roll every time and you're pulling them off. It's a lot quicker to be able to sweep them up and just kind of do that, and you're ready and you're done when you're using the paper towel sheet already cut up for you. So a lot of times you're trying to do multiple things at the same time on set, and it really is helpful just to be able to come in and do that. So yeah, I mean, I think as far as white wine pours or wine pours in general, we've seen them a lot of different ways over history. I think, you know, really choosing the container and then playing with quantities and speed first. The more you could lock everything off, the better. Like your camera's on a tripod, your glass is in the same spot every time. You know, things like that are really important to really be able to control and see the difference between one take and another take. So yeah, all things to take into consideration when you're pouring. But you know, pouring from a bottle isn't so bad either, especially if you wait a little more towards the bottom of the bottle. It's okay, but you know, it all comes down to artistic intent and what you're trying to do. Yeah, pretty good. As far as wine goes, I think that is most of it. I think with wine, it's also, you want to make sure that you have some, especially with red wine, you have some light coming in from behind it, so you really kind of see those purple hues and those tones and the red tones in it, to really kind of get a good feel of what that wine is supposed to look like. It's really hard if it just goes like black sometimes if you don't have enough light coming through it. And with that goes, if you get a pour going where it kind of scrapes the side of the glass and kind of does a fun swoop, that is going to be super helpful, and that is going to look really good. So, cool. So wine is done. We poured coffee. Oh man, we're just drinking it up today. So let's take a little side and talk about pouring beer, because beer is very different. So once again, you know, a lot of times with beer we'll use real pint glasses because that's what we're used to seeing beer in. But sometimes we'll make, this is once again a plexiglass container that we've made here that is basically perfectly round. So, because on beer glasses, like pint glasses, you usually get kind of a tapered edge this way. And with that, a lot of times when you're super macro, you'll get fall off in focus because you're not necessarily straight up and down to a camera that's straight up and down. Otherwise, you would have to, you know, if the glass is like this, you have to tilt your camera to match. And then now you're looking up through it. So, you know, there's trade-offs to everything. But sometimes we want just a perfectly clear container. So we've made some clear plexi containers where we basically buy clear tube and we just glue on a bottom piece to it. This is also something we just bought in a store. So it's a clear glass that's made of, actually out of plastic, that sometimes could actually look better than glass, just because the process of making glass leads sometimes to more of those wiggles and wobbles, or whatever you want to call it, just the optical impurities in the glass. All right, so that was a side note on the containers when it comes to that. So with beer and with cans in general, so this also covers soda too, that glug air exchange that we're running into is going to be a consistent thing. So here, let's move these out of the way for now. So if I go to pour this, you know, you get that little like vibrating, you know, vibrating effect, unless I get to the air exchange point. You see how nice and smooth that is. But if I go like this, it glugs, you know. So there's a couple ways to get around that. One is, as I said, is you got to give it a way to get air inside. So you could either, I only have this right here. So if you punctured a hole in the bottle of this beer and then you hold it with your finger, and then when you go to pour it, you lift your finger, and that lets the air in, and that's going to really pull that beer right out of there, or that soda, whatever it is, which could look good. It could also look a little extreme because we're not used to seeing it pour out that fast. It might look a little fake without some of that air exchange glug that you get. So, all things consider, same thing. Also, the way you fold back the tab in the beer can or the soda can could have a really different effect too on your pour. So, and one thing too is like if you pour hard, you'll often get lots and lots and lots of head. And we'll have to stop pouring. So a lot of times with beer or soda, we'll actually pour it out ahead of time. I have this thing where I put my finger in it and then the bubbles go away faster, but I don't know if that's actually science or not, but we'll see. If once again, it depends on what you're trying to do with a beer pour, right? If you're trying to get that like first beginning of the pour where it's really light, then you have to kind of let it settle out, and then you kind of do just a light pour. Yeah, sure, I'll do one right now. How about that? So let's say you wanted that just first pour, there you go. Then you see the bubbles later. So, that really helps a lot by doing the pre-pour where you kind of work out some of the gas from it, because having too much gas is actually not so good. The next thing we do a lot of the time too is, let's say we pour gently about, because let's say you want that perfect finish, right? You're like, I don't know if you know that a Heineken glass has a little mark where the Heineken is supposed to rest right on the shoulders of the star, is like a perfectly filled Heineken. It should be, that's where the beer level, and the foam, the head is right above that. So let's say we're trying to go for something like that. I could fill it that way, and we're really trying to go for the finale, right? We're trying to get the end of the beer pour. Same thing, you see how, oh my gosh, so much head in there. So I'm gonna give that a second to settle in. So for this, we're basically going for that perfect ending. But right now, if I went too gently, if like this, and I was like, little bits, you see there's not a whole lot of action happening in the liquid. It looks dead. So you wanted to feel like the pour was hard the whole way, but then yet it settled in perfectly at the end. So that's kind of part of the challenge of all that stuff, is trying to get the right balance of head with beer. So usually it takes me a little practice to get this right. So I'm not guaranteeing you this is going to be perfect, but that has settled down quite a bit. So I'm going to try to give it one big hit hard and see if I end without overflowing, but kind of perfectly full. So let's see. So yeah, that looked pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. It could have used a little bit more, and sometimes you can hit it a few times and still get some nice action in it. But yeah, it's all about trying to get that first pour happening really good so that your end is just all you're worrying about. So I think concentrating on one thing at a time is the way to go when it comes to these kinds of pours. Oh my gosh, I have so many things to drink later. Other things on beer, obviously there's lighter color beers, there's darker color beers. So a note on lighting is you always want to get some light kind of coming through the glass. As you see here, like having that nice glow in the beer really brings it to life. In general, it reflects what's behind it. There's a whole class on beverage lighting on the Garage Learning's YouTube, so please check that out if you want to learn more about lighting beverages. So moving on from the beer world, and let's talk a little bit into the side of the food world. So chocolate is a challenging substance to work with. And oftentimes when I do it, I have a food stylist who's really good at doing it. But I'm going to do my best today to show you. I mean, it's more about the pour than it is coming up with like the perfect final result today. So a lot of times in commercials, you'll see that, that candy bar or granola bar or whatever it is that has that perfect chocolate wave that lands on top of it. And I'm going to show you a couple ways to try to do that yourself. So here is some Hershey syrup. which everybody knows. This is a standard. It's pretty liquidy. It's pretty light. It's not like real chocolate at all. I have some Hershey's Sundae Dream, which is a little thicker than Hershey's, and that's what actually I'm going to be using today. So this is a little thicker. I'll show you some examples of it in a moment, but something to kind of consider finding. And then there's things like this. This is like a Smucker's Hot Fudge. So as you see, it is incredibly thick. So it is super, super thick. It can't even get it to come out of the bottle very easily. I could just see it moving a little bit. So with this, you could actually heat this up, and by how much you heat it, you could adjust how viscosity, how viscous it's going to be. So what's really cool about this is it's still not full chocolate and trying to melt down real chocolate, which is really difficult to deal with because it'll start hardening. It's super temperamental, but at least it'll let you kind of get a more deep effect than if you were gonna, use a really thin Hershey's like this one. Just to kind of give you a first example before we get into our bars. So try to see the best way to show this. Okay, so basically if I, use the Hershey syrup and I went to pour a line here, right? I get like a really thin, kind of boring line. But if I we'll use my nice big, here, let me get rid of the milk in there. Okay, so if I use this in here, there we go, and I pour off the side of my container, and I'm actually going to squish it a little to make it kind of flatter, right? So now if I go to do that, and I go to do this pour, it's going to take a while, but you see, now it's pouring a little thicker. It's still honestly so thin that it's hard to make it get any wider. It's definitely still wider than the just pouring from the spout, but you really got to get it thickened up. So that's where we're going to use the Hershey's Sundae Dream, and I'm actually going to pour out of something. Let's see what I have that's the best for this. Here, hold on one second. I'm going to go wash the dishes. Okay. Sorry about that. So I'm going to dry this out real quick. So this is actually a square container. So I'm really trying to get as wide of a stream of chocolate as I can. So I'm going to pour this in here. And it's always good to practice this before you put your real your real bar on your shot. So let's clear this out. This will be my new test subject here. So now, if I try to pour this, let's see, how do you see that the best? Kind of like, yeah, I think you can see that there. And also another thing to consider is the higher away up from the surface I am, the thinner that stream is going to get because it just keeps getting smaller and smaller as it goes down. So you always want this to be as close to your frame as possible. And let's see how this does here, considering it's still a pretty thin liquid. Oh yeah, that is actually pretty perfect. So as you can see, it's a nice wide stream of chocolate there. And I feel with that, I'm ready to do my real bar. So then, with all pours, as we've discussed already, speed is really important. So with this, it's the speed at which I move across the bar. It's also the speed at which I tip this. It's all important. That's the crazy thing. That's why pours are so challenging. And you want to kind of keep things as consistent as possible. That's where this syrup is great, because I could buy it over and over and over, and I know it's always going to be almost exactly the same consistency. When it gets into heating, real chocolate or kind of a chocolate fudge, like if it's a little colder, a little warmer, it might be a little faster running, it might be a little slower. So So it's all things that you're trying to minimize the variation in what you're trying to do. So here we go. So now I'm going to do it on the chocolate bar itself. And here I'll try to bring that a little closer. Yep. Cool. Let's see. Woo! And then, yeah, that brings us to our next topic, the end of a pour. So when it comes to something like this, trying to get that perfect end cut off is really, really challenging because, as we all know, when you stop pouring, there's still like that dribble that happens afterwards. And that goes for any of the liquids that we've kind of covered today. Trying to get that really hard stop is really challenging. And sometimes you could do it by hand. Sometimes what we actually do is, I could just use this to show you, is let's say this is our pour. I'm just going to go lightly. You could do this. You'd say you're pouring, and then you cut it off like that. So sometimes that really works well, where you actually do a hard cut off, which helps it not drip and drip and drip, and then you just back yourself away. So just something to consider when you're trying to plan out a pour that you're trying to do. As you see here, we made quite a mess of this chocolate bar, but it actually kind of looks delicious. But we're going to do that one more time. And, oops, I need more paper towels, all the paper towels. Here we go. So I'm going to do that one more time, and I'm going to see what happens if I actually move slower going across the bar. But these are part of the challenges, right? These are some of the things you have to play with is, depending on what effect you want, is the speed and the amount. And that's where it gets really challenging to do by hand, and hence why we love robots, because they are really good at doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it doesn't have to be a full 6-axis robot, the crazy things that we use. We also teach how to make just like simple model movers, something that would just like tilt this and move it down the way, which you could probably build for a few $100. So, you ready for this? Here we go. So I'm just going to go a little slower in my movement. And then you see, trying to cut that off at the end is very challenging. But with that, you see that, it was a little thinner stream because I was going slower, but it starts to pile up on itself and kind of give you those folds, which could be a good or a bad thing depending on what you're trying to do. But pouring chocolate onto a bar like this is a really challenging thing, and I'd actually say, hey, give it a try. It's something you could do with your smartphone if you put the phone on a nice tripod and you kind of got set up and played with it. With pouring specifically chocolate, make sure there's some bigger highlights around. So make sure that you have either a window close by with kind of something that'll diffuse the light a little bit, or you have some sort of a big white wall or white card nearby, because you need like a really big highlight when it comes to chocolate so that it kind of hits it no matter where it's reflecting. And it's really dark too, so make sure you have enough light so that it doesn't just go into black. The more light the better, in that it will you could always darken it down a little bit. It's a little hard when you're trying to underexpose it, then you try to make it a little brighter later. So that goes for our chocolate pour. And as far as all these pours goes, it really is first what you're trying to do and kind of really practicing it. I think go pick up a few supplies, set up your camera, and start just doing some pours, and try to see how you make it look as good as possible. The other thing to keep in mind is you want to be efficient with your time. So let's say I had 2 of those candy bars just sitting here ready to go. If you're going to do this all day, unwrap them, get them all stacked, and make sure you choose which one looks the best. And you start with your not so good looking guys first, and then once you think you have your pour kind of dialed in, then you bring in your hero food. Same thing goes with glasses. Especially if you're shooting something on a black background and you have a lot of like kind of edge lighting happening, make sure your glasses are super clean. I mean like super clean. Like you hold it up to a light right behind it and see if you can see spots and smears and fogginess. You're going to see that on camera. So sometimes we'll use microfiber cloths artwork. This is just a regular towel, which is good for like the first washing. You know, I recommend you do the first wash, and then to get the bulk of the stuff off, then you maybe throw some Windex on there, and you get the second wash, and then the third is kind of like the polish. Well, once again, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're on a white background, it's a lot more forgiving than if you're on a black background. Trying to think, you know, as far as getting into food, what other pours are really good? I mean, you could get into powders and, you know, confectioner sugar and all sorts of other fun stuff. You could pour cereal into a bowl. You could pour milk into cereal. Same thing. It's all about, think about that shape that you want your liquid to be and find a container that you could play around with, one that has a very, you know, small tip to it, or one that could have a nice wide shape to it. And then, you know, sometimes we'll even use like empty beer cans like this and just actually cut the top off of it, because then it gives you a nice metal round shape that we could work with also. So yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to trying to get that pour perfect, getting the timing right, getting the mount right, getting the aim right, then getting the light right and the composition. It's, you know, it's a challenge, but the payoff is great. Like when you just like hit it right and everything looks good, it's really exciting to see that happen. So with that, I'm going to leave you for today, and I really hope you're able to learn something from me today. If you want to learn more, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Steve Giralt and at The Garage Learning, which is our online educational platform that helps teach all this kind of stuff. Make sure that you also follow The Garage TV. That's the production company that we own here in Brooklyn. And if you ever want to rent a robot or learn more about robot rentals at all, thegaragerentals.com is our robot rental company as well. So we have a lot of garages happening. But at the end of the day, it's all about empowering people like you to do more amazing work and practice and become just as good as me. So that being said, thank you to everybody for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to DM me, reach out if you have any questions at all. And I appreciate it. So take care, and thank you so much.
All right. That was amazing. I, again, never thought that I could learn so much about pouring, pouring and food in general. I mean, we all love it. We all live with it. And amazing tips that shared from these wonderful experts that we've had this week here at B&H Food Photography Week. So that closes out Wednesday. I definitely want to, again, one more shout out. Don't forget to join the hashtag BH Food Photo Week sweepstakes. Again, share your favorite food photos on Twitter or Instagram, tagging B&H and using the hashtag BH Food Photo Week for a chance to win a Fujifilm XS10 and an 18-55 lens with a Transcend memory card. In addition, we'll be choosing a handful of these images to include in our food photo critique happening tomorrow at 2 p.m. here on YouTube. You can find the full sweepstakes information via the B&H social media. So again, don't forget, tomorrow we've got the panel at 1 p.m. and then the food photography critique at 2 p.m. So that about wraps it up for me. I've been your host, Gabriel Biederman at B&H Photo. And thank you again for a wonderful day, and hope that you guys are super inspired to level up your foodie eating and photography. Really get, just listening again to what both Steve and Yessica said today, lighting, right? Lighting is so key, and the backgrounds, you know, finding the right backgrounds, getting the right backgrounds out there for you. So really essential to be not thinking just about the food, but all the elements and then the storytelling from there. So thank you again, and we will see you next time.